I went to Patna recently and it was about 7 o'clock, but this time there was something significantly different.
So the future of power doesn't arrive with great fanfare. It almost hums very quietly into existence, and before we know it, everything has changed.
This episode, Ravin, is really about how villagers take power into their own hands, one bulb at a time, one fridge at a time, one sewing machine at a time. And I went to Patna recently and it was about 7 o'clock. And I've been to Patna before on work, but this time there was something significantly different. I just felt like an energy. Um, because before, 7 o'clock meant that everyone was rushing indoors. It was a very final time in the day, right? Everyone was moving down into their homes, and it didn't mean rest necessarily. It just meant okay, it's dark, so you need to be home. And I think it worked in agrarian societies a while ago, but now, given that fewer and fewer people are identifying as farmers, then we can't really have the sun dictate our routines always. Yeah.
And that's a really important distinction, Ritu, because people sometimes talk about villages as if there's a cultural preference to staying indoors or going indoors after sunset, when that's actually not true. It's an imposed restriction, because when electricity becomes unreliable, time actually collapses, because once it goes dark, you're not able to study, your shop is not able to indulge in commerce, the village panchayat is not able to sit down and have a meeting. Even if you had a fridge, it's pointless because everything in there is going to get spoiled. And so village life was really governed around the constraints of electricity being unavailable, rather than these being cultural preferences of life stopping after sunset.
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome to be walking down the streets of the village at night. I never saw village life at night before, in this region at least. And um, it was just great to see kids playing, because in the morning everyone's being shoved into school, and women are doing the chores, and men are doing. They referred to it as a small generator. Right. And so you and I are calling it a microgrid, but for them, it was like a bunch of solar panels that charge during the day, and a small generator, micro, like biomass generator, that effectively supported the supply at night. Right. And there's a battery that smooths the ups and downs, and a controller that's making a decision, I'm assuming, every second.
Pretty much, yeah. So you'll have perhaps solar panels or wind.
Yeah.
They're charging a battery. Batteries are still expensive. So
Yeah.
you get a limited, finite amount of life that's coming out of the battery. And that will give you power during the day, because you've got this constant recharge coming into it. You don't have to have a big battery bank. At night, on the other hand, you mentioned biogas generators. And what is a biogas generator? You're using bio waste.
Yes.
Stuff that's coming out of your farms. So it's waste to energy, in fact, right? So it's like a diesel generator, but instead of diesel, it's running on waste or bio waste or farm waste. And that's what's keeping the village powered on the times when the grid is not working. So let's say the grid works 80% of the time. For the 20% that it doesn't, this little village becomes islanded. It becomes an island of electricity by itself. And either it's solar panels with battery, or this farm waste generator is giving power to the entire community.
And I feel like this is sort of change. Not only has it changed opportunities, right, that people have, it's changed behavior, because young girls actually being able to go to each other's houses
made
in
the
the
village
evenings.
safe.
Yeah, it's made the
Yes.
village safe, and you can see how the village, people talk about electricity now, and it's not like it used to be like an unknown, right? They're like, oh, pata nahi, bijli ke. Now it's something that belongs to them, and it's
Yes.
no longer an unknown.
Yeah.
And as much as I love it, but it's also they have adapted to it and taken like this, right?
Yes,
So you
yeah.
say now we take it for granted, and yeah, they should take it for granted.
Yes, just as we do in the city, right?
Just as-
Because
yeah,
it's become a commodity that's guaranteeing the normalcy of your life.
Exactly.
Which means that, honestly, it means that after dinner, kids can study. As you said, girls can walk on the street and go to the friends' houses. People can continue to do commerce because the fridge continues to have power, which means you get cold Coca-Cola if you want it, or cold whatever, frozen vegetables, whatever's in the Kirana store fridge, or the retail shop. All sorts of things that we take for granted in the city or anywhere else in the world have become normal also in the city. And it's come about by this small technological introduction, which allows the grid which allows the village's electricity to be islanded when the grid proves to be less than reliable.
Yeah.
Mm.
One microgrid for man, revolution for mankind kind of situation here.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So Rav, I feel this microgrid is huge, right? We've understood how it works. We've understood the impact it has. I mean, to some extent, I'm sure the impact is like far deeper, far wider than what meets the eye, you know? But who's enabled this? What's the infrastructure that's allowed this to happen? How long has it taken? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Ritu. And remember, the microgrid is something that helps a community island from the grid. In India, typically, these are smart systems that are operated with smart meters that are linked to an electronic wallet where you can prepay for your electricity. So, you know, it's really important for communities because you don't overuse electricity and then get this big bill and a heart attack at the end of the month. You're prepaying on a wallet. And so you know exactly what you're paying for. And you're only paying for this when the grid is failing, right? So it's a seamless transition from the grid to this little electric island, and you've prepaid for it. And that smartness is what's driving this participation in the community. But what's most interesting for me is the community model. There's companies like Urja Energy that bring the tech, but they start with a community first model. So they've had discussions with communities that have been let down by the grid before. So whether it's farmers whose pumps weren't working, or women's groups that that seeked economic empowerment but couldn't achieve it because of no electricity, and they've created a community-driven model where they've enabled people to co-own pumps or co-own sewing machine or co-own shops. But what that has done is allowed for economic participation by the entire village, which was not the case before. So, women's groups can suddenly create a tailoring shop or create a shop. Farmers can have electricity for the pumps coming right through and also share the ownership of the pump. What does that economic participation mean? It means that it's bringing depth to the Indian economy. So as we are watching, what we think is one little interesting, unique pilot of 20 projects in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh is actually a model that will change how rural India participates in the Indian economy. And it's all coming because of this microgrid.
That's beautiful. And I mean, Adore has a part to play in this with Adore Powertron. Like, what's the energy management system that and how does it fit in this whole puzzle?
So the energy management system that we particularly make is designed for renewable energy, stationary renewable energy. So it's the brain of a system that is helping you switch between the grid and renewable energy. That renewable energy could be battery, could be a lithium-ion battery, or it could be a generator, it could be a mix of both. So you could have an algorithm that says when the grid fails, go straight to battery. As the battery is now powering down, make sure that the generator switches on so that you're switching seamless power to the village, right? Has the microgrid had an impact just beyond what is obvious to the eyes, which is energy is available 24 hours? How is it changing in India?
Look, I remember during lockdown, during COVID, we were like, oh, work from home. And honestly, it was like the best time my husband and I have. It was probably the best time in our marriage because we were always together, and he was working out of one room, I was working out of the other. In between Zoom meetings, I'd go and give him a hug, and it was really lovely. And but I realized like something. We live at the bottom of Malabar Hill, and our electricity never went off, right?
Same line as the chief minister's residence.
Exactly,
that's right.
most likely. And in office, when we work physically together as a team, the availability of electricity is the same.
Yes.
And then when people started dropping off, like there was one guy,
your remote workers
started dropping off, and there was this one guy that like he was never, like it was almost like he didn't exist.
He was in Latur or
right. I don't know
Nanded or
where he
somewhere.
was, but it was an unfortunate place to be during that time because there was no energy. And initially I had just moved from Australia, so I was like, if I have energy, then you have energy. What is this situation? But I realized that that's not really the case. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. But we had the same thing at our work. We all moved online, and the city people continued to stay in meetings, but then people who went to their homes in rural India would suddenly drop off in the middle of a 1-hour meeting and come back half an hour later.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We experienced that. Yeah.
So there's someone making decisions about like if there's a finite amount of energy, who gets it?
Oh, how interesting. So yes, let's talk about this concept, finite amount of energy. Because load shedding used to be a very big thing, particularly in the Western Indian state of Maharashtra. So
Yes.
Pune used to have holidays on Thursday because power was switched off on Thursday. Other cities like Aurangabad and Ahmednagar used to have them on Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
Oh.
Each city had a different holiday. You worked over the weekends because that was the day when there was no electricity available. So there was a finite amount of energy. Of course, it's history now. But it's interesting that you say, yeah. So there is a decision being made by someone when you have finite amount of energy about who gets it and who doesn't. I think that's where you were going with this conversation.
And how is that decided? Like, if there's a finite amount of energy, who gets it first? Is it hospitals? Is it the metro? Like, I would be petrified to be underground in a metro and it just stops.
Yeah, clearly in your case, it was that energy would never disappear because you were in a VIP area. But I expect it would be the big VIP hospitals in the metros, in the metropolitan cities, and then of course it would be the urban transportation systems, the airports, it would be defense bases and things like that. And I think the point you're getting to is by the time you get to the village, you're way down the food chain.
Yeah, but there are clinics in the village. There are people on oxygen in the village. It's not like the life and death situations only happen in cities.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but you're right. When you have a triage of decisions to make, then you've already decided who the priority is. By the time you get to the village or rural parts of India, no matter how dire your circumstances are, the electricity's been switched off.
Yeah. I remember in 2018, there was a foot and mouth disease outbreak in Punjab. And that's huge because you just have to let go in, I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, of livestock. And we were working on a program with dairy farmers for buffaloes at the time. And what was ironic is that the government is paying for a tika, which is what the vaccines are called, right? For all of these livestock. It's something that's subsidized by the government. It's for free. And the vets from the clinics, the local veterinary clinics, they go out to the farmers and provide this. Or the farmers can bring them to the clinics, and there's their tika days, and it happens like once every 6 months, right? Now, if everyone is being vaccinated against, or not everyone, every livestock is getting vaccinated against foot and mouth disease, how do we have an outbreak? So turns out that we had an outbreak because the cold chain that is required for the vaccine
Didn't exist.
to have its efficacy, it broke. And it breaks at many points. It breaks during transportation, but
also during storage.
At the veterinary clinic.
The fridge doesn't work.
The fridge doesn't work. The veterinary clinics a lot of times don't really have a generator. If they have a backup, it's not going to last that long. And so when we started our program, and one of the main reasons we got 15,000 farmers to sign up with us within like a few months is because we were giving vaccines that we were purchasing, and then we looked at the cold chain the whole way to delivery, right? And so we were like, look, if you want to get these vaccines, you would have to go to XYZ city, like Bathinda city, pick up the vaccine, and how will you make sure that by the time it gets to your place, it's fine?
It's still a vaccine.
It's still a vaccine. You'd have to get like so many liters of ice or whatever. So we said, we'll do it for you. And in exchange, we buy back the milk or we buy back the asset. Right. And that got us to sign up so many farmers. We worked with Garvasu.
So it's very interesting. So, you're talking about farmers, you're talking about livestock. We're talking about people who are perhaps in dire situations in the village who normally would have been triaged out of power because that power had gone to VIP locations in metropolitan locations. Microgrids are actually changing that. So it's not just economic participation, it's resilience, reliability, and dignity of life, which was not available before. And a guarantee when you're in a situation that might be an emergency or dire on oxygen or in a hospital or in eating medicine that is effective continuously, that is available to you, all because of an idea of how to island a small community effectively when the grid fails.
That's brilliant to island that community, because we talk about farmer suicides and we talk about so much stuff that happens. but if your entire livestock gets wiped out because of foot and mouth disease,
Exactly. I mean, you've taken loans.
you've taken loans and
Yep.
you've taken a lot of stuff, and then you're like, why did this happen? Oh, it's because of electricity. Like,
Yeah.
it seems
yeah.
like an unlikely
Yeah.
sort of perpetrator, right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, how is that linked to a foot and mouth disease?
True.
Yeah.
So the future of power doesn't arrive with great fanfare, Ritu. It almost hums very quietly into existence, and before we know it, everything has changed.
Yeah. I can just like how this shows up in the world is going to be exponentially larger than you and I can tell.
My message to close is actually one of hope. It's not one of despair. We're going in the right direction. There'll be lots of hiccups along the way, but it's one that is changing India and changing India for good.
Yeah. And for the first time in a long time, the villagers aren't waiting. They're deciding.